What's the buzz? Busy bee, you make life sweet for you and me. I plant the flowers, you bring the queen. We'll build a great big colony. Spring is sprung, let's fly sky high. We're alive at the Hive.
Hi.
Hey!
Hey guys, welcome back to Alive at the Hive. We've got a real special show for you today. It includes honey extraction. I think the date's the 14th?
I think today's the 14th,
Yeah.
Flag Day.
14th,
For us
14th
Americans.
of June. So for some of us, we're still extracting spring honey. Show us, George, what's your spring
This is
honey
a
look like?
great example of some spring honey right here. Nice and light colored.
Yeah,
Here's
so on the table I also brought some of mine. So that's just little 8-ounce containers to show you the difference of extraction through the year. The two ones in the center, they're actually only a week apart between two different apiary yards. You might not see it in the camera, but there's a slight amber difference. And then the darker one right on the end here is what we extract in September, October.
I think this is the best reason why you should support your local beekeepers is because you get honey that looks like this and you get honey that looks like this. You know, if you go to the store, all the honey looks the same color, but we know that, you know, if you get local honey and you get it right off the hive, it's going to look like this. So it'll be exciting to see what our honey looks like today.
Yeah, just a fun fact. Turn your bottle back upside down, George.
This one?
Yeah.
That little bubble?
See the bubble? See how slow it takes to get to the top? And you don't make carnage everywhere? So by watching that bubble, you can actually see the viscosity of the honey and how thick it is. So that's a true indicator of thick honey. When you do that with imported honey or honey that's been adulterated with corn syrup, that bubble will move at a different rate.
You want to see something cool?
Yeah, don't juggle my honey. You crazy clown. Oh! Okay. Okay, so honey demonstration, Mr. Juggler. Today I brought you some honey frames to extract. So you're going to teach Alicia how to extract?
We're going to extract.
Yeah.
Alicia and I are going to...
So some of the gear that's used, this one here is a heated knife. So if we plug this in, it'd be nice and warm, and you can actually cut through the cappings with it and get a clean finish. However, if you aren't that sophisticated or don't want to spend the money, you can just use a standard kitchen knife. If you heat it up in warm water and then dry it off, it'll cut through the wax just as easily.
So we gotta get something to remove the cappings, right, off the honey. So that's step number one.
Step number two is to have some honey.
To have some honey, yeah.
Okay, so honey and honey. This side is beautiful, it's fully capped. This side still has some capping to do. To check it, you can shake it. If it was only nectar, that would come out with a shake. We can also check the moisture content with some other technology as well. Usually if I'm uncapping, at the spring, I like to try and get anywhere about 90% fully capped. And when I say that, with my gear I run 20 frames in an extractor, and I'll run a couple extractors at a time. That will all homogenize and blend in together. Grab that one, Alicia.
Wow, it's heavy.
And here's a second one for you. So I try to bring two frames that were drawn out and capped about the same, and that way our extract will stay evenly balanced. Okay, guys?
That's a nice one, Tim. That one's, the wax is built out a little bit further.
Yeah, so with these frames, these are the standard Hoffman frames. So when you have 10 frames in a 10 frame box, they come out to about flush with the edge. You can actually run a 9 frame spacer and just put 9 frames in a 10 frame spot. And with B space, they'll actually draw that wax out further. It's really nice once you've got drawn gear from the previous season, because then you're spacing, you don't get burr wax, and they do it properly.
Why does sometimes the wax looks light and sometimes the wax looks dark on the honey? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so that's whether or not there's an air pocket underneath it. So sometimes they'll have a small air pocket, so they actually call that wet capping, where it's dark like that. And these cappings here are actually slightly elevated off the cell, so you have a very small air pocket underneath there. So
both is good. There's no difference in the quality of the honey.
No difference in the quality of honey. It's just what they do in the hive. So you can see this one here is mainly wet over the top, and then it's slightly raised over this side here. Mm. Awesome. So uncapping, you've never done it before?
Never have.
Okay. We'll grab a bucket.
Yeah, and this is the time of year to take honey. It's definitely, when you go into your hives, you'll notice that some of the frames are definitely capped right now. So if you leave the honey on too long, the bees will actually start to use it if they need it and take it down into their hives. So it's definitely a good time to extract.
Yeah, so usually if it's capped, you're fairly safe. If it's uncapped, like some of this down the bottom, they'll move that around the hive.
Will they be upset if you take it? Like, do they need that for later?
They do, but they still have plenty of time. We actually get a second flow later in September, which can stock up the hives. And then if you're running commercial, the value of the honey is $7 to $10 a pound, depending on how you sell it. And you can substitute that with supplement feed like sugar syrup, like fructose sugar syrup. Hey guys, what we also have is a double screen. So this is to strain the honey when it's going through. So you can either extract straight into a bucket and then warm it up again slightly and screen it later on, or depending on your volume, you can do it straight away. We're going to do it straight away just as a demonstration today. And then we have our standard food grade bucket.
We just don't have a bottle of water, right? That's the only thing we're lacking, but that's okay. There you go.
So
it has nothing to do with muscle, thankfully.
No. So the wax, it's a warm day, so the wax will actually come off pretty easy. I'm just pressing in with my forefinger a little bit just to get through.
You tell he's done that before. Just trying to take the very top coating of the wax out. Don't go too deep.
So the other tool you can use is a pricking fork or your kitchen fork out of your kitchen drawer, and you just want to make sure every little cell is open.
That looks great.
Looks messy.
It can be.
It's a sticky product, but it's a tasty product. You can lick your fingers when no one's looking, or you can put your hands in warm water and it will just dissolve off your fingers. So nice and gentle. So the bigger machines, I have a chain uncapper that spins around and takes the cappings off, or you can use a heated steam knife that's pretty much like the electric knife. It's just using a water element to go through. Okay, Alicia, I did
So you
that.
definitely don't need fancy equipment to extract honey. Like Tim said, a kitchen knife and will work just fine if you're only doing 5 or 10 frames.
Beautiful, dripping, warm, nice and clear. We actually do have 2 cells here that we're just going to take out. So I don't run queen excluders this time of year, so there's one bee that hasn't hatched. We'll take that one out. So you want to check your frames. You want to make sure you don't have any disease in your frames. You don't want to have any funky smells. You're looking for mice, you're looking for ants, any remains of bees. I've done that one. You're up next.
Oh boy.
Looks like you're playing violin there.
If only I knew how to play violin.
I have a feeling like if you knew how to play violin, it would help you with your uncapping, maybe.
Beautiful.
Look at no waste there. Look at all the honey on Tim's uncapping there. No waste. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. And that's without a hot knife and without hot water. It's awesome. You would usually not do this outside because you're only going to attract some bees, so you usually choose to do this inside somewhere, but since we're with you today, we figured we'd do a couple frames before the bees found out what we were doing. But
The camera crew's protected though, so that's what's important.
yeah, the camera crew's sitting in a tent today, which is awfully smart. It took me about 4 shows to break it out for you guys, but you know.
It's quick enough.
That looks like good stuff, doesn't it?
It's liquid gold right there. That's delicious.
Can you eat these inner parts?
You can eat the wax. So when we're doing comb honey, all you have to do is put it through a freeze cycle so you can get rid of any wax moth larvae or anything like that, which is a standard process commercially for processing. But with what we're doing today, just liquid extraction, you don't need to do that.
That's probably good enough.
Good enough?
Yeah, I think that's good enough. Flip it over and get the other side done.
We've got a bee here currently joining me.
No, you
Yeah, you
can.
could.
You could.
Yeah.
Because I have,
No, there's no nutritional value to wax. So
like chewing gum.
yeah, so if you want to do like a Jenny Craig's diet, it's one of those cheap things. You can eat it straight.
You get a pound
through.
of wax a day and 0 calories.
Yeah,
huh?
there's no calories in it whatsoever. So I've actually had my honey lab tested for export from New Zealand, and with that, with our comb honey, they'll give you a full sugar breakdown, proteins right the way through. There's no value in wax whatsoever from a nutritional perspective.
But it's great for your skin.
It is. So we actually make a lip balm, a body balm. We've got ointments with bee venom for apitherapy.
It's always fun time of year to extract, you know, at least the first couple frames, you know, it's exciting. It's like pulling your...
Just a trick. Try to get your knife right over the far side and go down like you're carving a turkey. I don't know if you eat turkey, but...
No turkey.
Okay. This is me telling an American how to carve.
Yeah.
There you go. Beautiful. So all that slurry that you see at the bottom there, that can all be spun through a wax spinner later on.
Sorry. Yes, I'm just too
with
into
that,
it.
you can get more honey back out of your wax cappings. You can also put it through a worm dry press or a apple cider press if you've got one of those.
Excellent.
Feel
good?
like I'm not doing so great on this side.
That's okay. So there's no real wrong
Well, your
way
knife
of
is stickier too,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like...
There's no real
okay.
way of doing it wrong because it can all be processed.
Some people crush and strain it, so, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Crush and strain.
Let me just tidy it up for you.
Yeah, please do.
So when you're running bigger gear, you want to make sure you get them all uncapped, even if you just break the cappings just by pushing your knife sideways. That way your extractors will stay nice and balanced.
So I ask about the crushing and extracting. Is there better or worse? I mean, spinning's obviously like the...
Yeah, so to answer that question, Chris, the only advantage of using an extractor is you don't destroy your comb as much, which means for the following season, the bees don't have to use energy or resources to draw out that wax. So that's where extraction comes in handy. In saying that, I produce a lot of comb honey, which then requires a lot of energy by the bees each year to produce more comb. But crushing with a fork, straight off the frame, that's a real simple, easy process.
So this is the club's 2-frame extractor. So I guess it could do 4 mediums or 2 deeps.
Can we go to over top camera?
Can you guys see that? In there, it's got a basket that sort of spins, and it's a tangential extractor, so it's only gonna extract one side of the frame at a time. So it's like a big centrifuge, basically. So it's going to force out the side of the honey that's on the side of the frame that's closest to the outside wall of the extractor.
So George, you notice that I've got plastic frames there. Plastic frames can be extracted either direction, either radial towards the center or tangential on the side, and they don't fall apart.
Correct, yes.
If you're using straight foundation, wax foundation, you have to be very careful when you're extracting tangential because the weight of the honey on the inside will actually try and push and bow the foundation out. You're over there, Alicia. Okay,
Oh,
have
boy.
a good look. Okay, so
I need this?
It may not be a bad idea.
yeah, so this is a manual hand crank. This takes a little bit of effort. Alicia's got big muscles from painting up ladders all day. And she's probably, well, I know she's fitter than I am and definitely fitter than George, so we're good to go.
What's the boogie-woogie that they're doing on the Hive?
So that's actually called washboarding. Guys, can you pick that up on camera, Donna?
Here or there?
Yeah, so you
Back
can
here,
actually
back and
see the
forth.
bees moving backwards and forwards. They actually don't, they've given it a name, but they actually don't know the reason behind it. So actually I believe Penn State and University of Delaware are both studying it at the moment, try and work out what's going on. After extraction, we'll actually come back to the hive and I've actually got an infrared camera here today, so we can have a play around with that and check out the imagery too.
I have noticed they don't do it as much on the wax dip boxes, so I'm not sure what that means, but
They like paint.
they like paint. They do it much more on paint than
They
on
like
wax.
paint. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might be able to see a temperature difference too between paint and the wax dip on the camera. That could be another scenario.
Yeah. There's probably a reason why they're not doing it on the wax dip box. I just don't know what it is, you know.
Well, I imagine there's more heat coming up because the boards, the entrances are staggered back with
Sure.
the units going up. So when we turn the camera on, we can have a look. Okay, Alicia, back to
Crank it out.
extracting. Do you know what you're doing?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Do you turn left or do
now.
you turn right, George? Does it matter
Yeah, I don't know if it.
Which-
Clockwise, I think. So you just want to get that in there. Go ahead.
So the reason why I asked that question, guys, is because the wax on the frame is actually, there's a 4-degree angle. You got it real fast.
You really go for it?
Yeah,
Really go for it.
The faster you go, the bigger the mess.
It's a little tricky because you got to keep that little metal thing in there.
Do you keep going? Like
Yeah, you go for like 15 minutes usually.
15 minutes?
Yeah, that's why we started at the beginning.
That's why
of
we
the
chose
show.
you.
Where do I hold?
Right, I'll hold.
You hold?
Just up top, right in front of this hive.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Nice
guys,
steady
you
pace.
can buy a manual extractor for about $300. I think the electric upgrade's worth about $150 in the ballpark range, depending on the extractor. That's a nice investment, getting that electrical upgrade.
Upgrade anyone?
Yeah, I'm not sure what brand this is, but I know on the Maxton range, yes you can. They've got a universal size drum unit that fits a standardized motor.
You got it.
You want to open that honey gate at the front?
Should I?
Yeah, let's see what comes out.
Uh-oh.
Keep going, keep cranking.
Got a little stuck there.
You're good. When you're ready.
Nothing coming out yet, but you may have to tilt it forward on this hive, on this extractor.
Yeah, maybe. But you have to fill it up till it comes out.
Yeah,
the
you have
gate.
to fill it up until it comes out. The gate sits up a little high. So I usually say 2 or 3 minutes, you know, and then you flip them, I think.
Yeah, so I have flanges bolted on my honey gates that go straight into tanks with clear reinforced pipe, food grade piping, so I can see the honey coming out and check it. Has anyone got any questions online about extracting honey? We can do that while Alicia's doing manual labor for me today. Nothing yet.
This is really why you guys had me come here for manual labor.
Oh, pleasure.
Let's, I can start to smell it. That's a good sign. This is not where you want to stand. I know people have been saying, George, why are you standing in front of the hives on all these shows? I said, no really reason, just because
You got the short straw at the beginning of the show, mate.
so yeah, this is not a good place to stand. But these are nice bees in this hive. We established that, so. I think we flip them. What do you think?
Donna, you got a question?
Yeah, is there like an average pound per frame? Like I'm finding that's about between 2 and 2.5 for medium frame. Is that right?
Yeah, depends on if you're running 9-frame spacing tools. Yeah, so you'll get about that if they're all drawn out and capped.
I think that's good.
So good rule of thumb is about
There you go.
25
There you
pounds
go.
a super.
Sweating yet?
I'm working up a sweat, yeah.
It is good exercise.
Good thing
though.
it was overcast today, because otherwise I would
It's a great thing to do with your kids. You know, you get your kids and say, hey, you
Yeah,
know, we got
child
some fun
labor?
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, child.
unpaid child labor.
I'm not sure if spinning the extractor would qualify as unpaid child labor.
Okay, you child labor laws. Can we pull up a frame and
We
have
gotta
a look
flip
at
them.
it? Because we gotta rotate them over.
Do it all over again, huh?
Do it all
So
over again.
Let's have a look and see what we got. What one side looks like now on the other side, George.
So you can see the difference. This is the unspun side. The unspun side here, nice and still has a lot of honey on it. And then the spun side here, which basically is all empty. So
Fantastic.
gonna-
Good job, Alicia.
nice
So-
arm strength. So we're just going to flip it to the other side. So you'll do the same thing, Alicia, on the other side. Just
Yeah.
flip the frame for me.
Who needs the gym?
So guys, if you're harvesting honey out of your deeps, tangential is the
there
way
like
to go on
way to
most of the
hook it?
extractor
This
range in the
goes like-
hobbyist market.
No.
No,
the-
no, it just sits in there.
If they get too close to the center, you'll
that's it,
find
just
you
sits in
don't
there.
extract the honey in the bottom of the edge of the frame. So it'd be a very long day for me to do this, Alicia. So I'm trying to put out 20 frames every 15 minutes with my extractors. With that, I am uncapping continuously with MaxLink gear. We can actually show that next time as a video clip. However, the concept's all the same, right? Just spin the honey out. My mum in New Zealand, she actually crushes the honey off the frames because Manuka honey, for example, is a thick tropic honey, so it's very thick. So you actually have to prick each cell to release the suction surface tension of the cell to get it out. So to build an extraction plant down there is about $150,000 to $400,000 depending on your size.
Whoa.
No, so I have a
Crazy.
MaxLink
Sound like you're taking off there for a second.
I have a
like
MaxLink
it.
chain capper that has 2 drums of stainless steel chain that comes out.
You gotta make sure you
set
take
the
all this
distance
home.
to
Don't
the
let
center
them
of the
take
frame.
video of it on you today.
It goes up and down like a
I'm really
pop
working
open
for it.
toaster.
Sorry. Sorry, sir.
You're good. I'll kick you later.
We're having a side conversation here. It's all
Okay.
good.
We got anything dripping out the front?
Nothing, but we're gonna. I think it's a matter of
Tilting forward.
turning it.
I would give it 30 more seconds real fast just to polish it off. And then we'll tip it forward and drain it onto the strainer.
There you go. That's good
Well
enough.
done. It's a little wonky, even though we did balanced frames. Well
Okay,
done,
now we're
Alicia.
gonna tilt it forward.
That's,
the
as you
whole
can
thing.
see, that's hard work. So as you're thinking about buying extractors or renting extractors, think about the volume of honey that you have and get the right tools for the job. It's pretty much beekeeping 101.
This is a little.
And it is an investment that lasts for a long time. So if you're going to grow your apiary yard, don't buy for the here and now, buy for
See it?
your future use.
Yeah, so it sounds like you either need equipment or like really powerful triceps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or a
Yeah.
party.
Or party.
Party.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's great. You know, you get like 5 or 10 of your friends over. You all have them spin it for a while and take home a bottle of honey.
I don't even know if I have that many friends.
Sure you do.
I'll put an ad on Craigslist.
Yeah. You know, looking for people to party.
That is beautiful. See how light that's coming out and how the honey's folding on itself? That just shows you the moisture content right at the moment. It's really quite dry.
Is that a good thing to
That
be
is
dry?
a really good thing. So honey, when it has too high a moisture content, I believe it's 18.4, can actually start fermenting.
Really?
Yeah, so you can check your honey and you can blend your batches together to keep it nice and light and dry.
Still coming out?
Still is, yeah.
Yeah, that's my honey, mate. Get as much out of it as possible.
No, this is Alicia's honey. We've already established that.
We've got an empty container over here. We can pour it in for you. You can take it home, Alicia.
That'd be great.
Just don't tell Don, my business partner. He might not be watching.
Well, it's on the internet now.
Look at that thing. There's a hive beetle larvae crawling on that on the bottom board there. You see it?
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
it just left. Yeah, it was a small hive beetle larvae.
So they actually pupate in the soil out in
Yeah.
front of the hive. So that was on its way out.
That's on its way out. That was kind of interesting. Still coming, or are we done?
That's a little bit. You give it a shake. You're shaking it from the crutch, mate. That's probably not a good thing.
You're getting some in the bucket.
You're missing the bucket.
You're missing the, yeah, there you go.
I think I'm done.
You can do. Yeah, guys, so
I could tilt
the
it.
hive beetle that's crawling out the front there, so small hive beetles, they actually pupate in the soil out in front. You can spray in front of your hives. I actually find the best thing to do is put a piece of plywood or something solid in front
That's
of your
what we
hives, and then actively try and
Did you
trap
ever go
inside
through
your
the
hive. So you can use
stream?
Swiffer sheets, you can use the beetle blaster traps, you can bait them with the oil. I know some guys use the
think we're good.
cockroach
There's still
combat,
like
which is a mitis, or it's an insecticide. So
Oh, wow.
there's different things that you can do.
We could do a teamwork there. But I think you got it, Alicia.
Yeah, I think you're good. It looks really, look at that. Beautiful. That's all right, it's on a lock.
Am I still getting honey?
A little bit.
Yeah, can you center the nozzle, like it looks like it's off to the side.
Rotate your drum
Yeah, rotate the drum.
out of the way.
Better?
Other way.
Other way.
There you go.
There you go.
Nope, towards me.
No, not
We'll
the drum,
move the whole
bucket.
thing that way.
Guys, as you can see, it can get messy really quickly. So one of the things you can do is if you're in your kitchen, if you're in the kitchen doing it at home, put a tarpaulin down, right? A tarp for you guys that don't use full English. So you can put down a sheet of plastic. It's going to be a real sticky mess when if things go wrong, things get knocked over. So
Looks good.
your garage is a nice place to do it. Make sure the doors are sealed when you're doing it. You can put some duct tape around or masking tape, and then you're good to go. You gonna have a look?
No, I'm just waiting for it to strain.
Tim, before you leave this subject, can you talk about washing that out and how you process it and get it ready for the next?
Okay, so there's two methods. One is you just leave the covers open and let the bees wash it out, and then you just rinse it again with water and Clorox afterwards, and then make sure it's really dry. So legally, for international export, you only need to wash your gear once a year. So honey is acidic, it's about 5.5 on the pH scale, and the high sugar content makes it antibacterial. So as long as the moisture content is below the golden threshold of 18%, it's A-grade honey, and therefore nothing's going to grow in it, and it's a sterile product. So we actually don't wash our processing plant through the season, because as our honeys go from the very light to dark, there's no contrast in color, and you just blend it right the way through. So with our system, we have pumps and strainers. Like there's quite a bit of gear in that processing line, so you don't really want to introduce water if you can help it. Going back to this scale, you simply leave it outside for 2 days on its side. The bees can drown in the honey, so you want to make sure it's fairly dry, but they will walk up and down the inside of the cavity wall and they will clean it with their proboscis, so they'll basically suck it dry. It's the same concept that we use for hive cutouts, where we'll cut the bees out of the void, remove them, and there'll be a small cluster left. You come back in about 10 days and it's completely dry, like they've basically consumed it again. The bees will take this back down and take it back to their hives. Okay, it's really simple. Like beekeeping's a whole lot of basic beekeeping 101 science in a row. Nice heads up, mate. I'll move out of the way.
Where you go with that honey? Don't go too far.
I'm going to take it over here for Alicia later on.
So for someone like me that only has 1 or 2 hives, what
Yes.
would be?
The easiest, the cheapest version for you is actually just crushing it off the frame and putting it through a colander or a sieve in your house, in your kitchen.
When you say crush, you mean
I mean
just
physically scrape it off the frame back to the bare bones of the plastic, or plastic frames. You got plastic or foundation, like the wax foundation?
wax foundation?
So be more gentle with the plastic frames. You can just, with your hive tool, you can just scrape it right off into the bucket.
Right.
Okay,
So with mine, just
scrape it down.
do you have to then re-wax them?
No,
Just be gentle.
just be gentle. Don't punch through the center column. You've got probably wire reinforced.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just be gentle with a blunt object, so your hive tool or a spoon,
Right.
and you can just scrape right the way through.
Scrape right the way through.
Yeah, to give you a demonstration with plastic. Guys, plastic is almost bulletproof. I'll just do the edge. You can actually just go through when you're taking it off, and it just comes straight off like that. You put it into your sieve or your colander, and you're good to go. If you just smear that back on the frame, the bees will rework that and take that to where they need to go.
Then they need to build up the curve again.
I need it a little bit, and it's not my hive.
No, I'm just saying. Then they need to.
Yeah, they will, but they'll build it out again. So if you've got a wax surface that's already there because you've pre-waxed your frames, these may have came in double wax coated. I like to roll her on, even on top of that later on in the spring. They'll rebuild it back out.
How physically can you do that? That wax layer in the center of those frames seems so easy to perforate.
Yeah, so be gentle.
Just
How easy? It depends on these.
I
Right? So
don't know my own strength.
yeah, so if you got a surgeon standing next to you, he might be a bit more delicate than like a panel beater, for example, or like a finesse painter like yourself that does real delicate work. You'll have no problems. Watching you, the way you're cutting the wax off compared to how rough I was, right? You'll learn it with repetition. It's a balance that everyone needs to find for themselves. If you go plastic, which is more of a commercial operation, the bees don't accept it as much, so you got to doctor up the frames a little bit more in the season, but they're pretty much bulletproof, right? So you can be pretty rough with them.
Would you recommend switching to plastic, or does it matter?
I would phase it into your program, just from my personal preference, because I'm running thousands of these frames, right? And they're easy to use. Like I like the white, because it's a nice clean color. So if you put your frame, if they say people put their frames down on the ground, you can see if you've got any dirt contamination, whereas the black frames are a little bit harder to see on color choice.
You know, and this hive went all season without a queen excluder on it. So, and you can see that the top medium in this hive is completely filled with honey. So again, you don't necessarily need to run queen excluders to get honey. You know, they're gonna generally put honey up top. You may not get as much, and you may have to be a little bit more selective of what frames you take, but you could definitely, you know, get honey without running a queen excluder.
What happens if you do have some honey and some brood, or does that never happen?
You actually, this time of year in our operation, we're actually starting to put queen excluders on. So usually our spring honey, as with George's frame in his hand there, we're usually only taking fully capped frames that have no contamination in them. So
no
we'll
brood.
actually go through each box and pull out those frames. Boxes that have brood, we'll then add a queen excluder on now and let that brood hatch out. So then you can come back, and depending on the cycle, that brood stage, anywhere up to a month later, you can start harvesting.
Yeah, you don't want to put brood in your, you know, yeah. If your frame had brood on it or larvae on it, you definitely don't want to be putting that in your extractor.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, this is just an example of how you can get, you know, a decent amount of honey without running a queen excluder.
The other thing some people do is run the queen excluder the other way, so they allow the bees to move quickly up and down the ends of the boxes, and usually the queen will stay in that sphere, usually towards the center of the hive. So she'll hit that queen excluder and go back down. But ideally, you'd be wanting to rotate those frames anyway to give space above the queen for laying. Even if she can't get there, it tricks her into not producing swarm cells. So there's a few little fine things to do, but you definitely don't need queen excluders when you know how to identify your queen in the hive, and two, when you've got more time and patience to go through when you're selecting to pull for your honey extraction.
You know, and this was a hive, as those of you who followed along with us this year know that this hive was never a big hive. You know, this hive was always kind of population-wise on the, I would say, on the smaller side, but you know, at here we are the middle of June, and that deep is completely filled of honey. So that's, like we said, that's about 25 or 30 pounds of honey.
That medium.
In that medium, yeah.
And there'll be honey in the deep below too. So if you want to, you can go through. If you can identify your queen, you can pull further down. And by extracting your deeps, you actually allow more space so you don't get honey bound, which allows the queen, as we go into dearth, usually they don't produce as much wax, so they start backfilling. So it allows you to build a larger population going into the fall, which will actually give you a more successful overwintering rate.
Sure, yeah.
Along with testing for varroa and treating, of course.
And the average hive in Chester County makes about probably between 35 and 40 pounds of honey a year. So, you know, we're in a really good area to produce honey for sure. And you know, if you're just making honey for yourself, for your friends and your family, if you're running 2 or 3 hives, you could definitely pull 50 to 70 pounds of honey off a year and be happy with it.
Yeah.
And really not, you know, the question is how do you know how much is too much, right? You asked that, Alicia. Like obviously, oh, there's Mr. Drone landed on my arm. You know, you know that becomes a issue. You know, as far as you know, not to feel like you're taking all the honey away from the bees, you know, and I guess they say a hive needs about 60 pounds of honey to overwinter. So you can sort of get a sense of what's left in the bottom by just lifting up the hive and seeing if it feels like 60 or 70 pounds.
Will they ever produce honey at the bottom, or is that usually?
Yeah, so there's honey there'll be honey all the way through this hive. You know, they'll set up the honey like a dome, basically. So on the sides, like on frame 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, there'll probably be honey in it. So there will definitely be honey on the sides of these boxes. Yeah.
So when you think about it, Alicia, that even though it's a square box, the brood chamber is basically a sphere inside the hive. So with the eggs, the larvae and the pupae. On the outside edge of that, you're going to have a ring of protein, which is the pollen, and then you have your carbohydrate. So they mix the protein and the carbohydrate together to make bee bread, which is what they feed all the young bees. And then the reason why they keep the pollen closer is because they need that for raw jelly production, which they feed every larvae gets that for the first couple of days. Before we break in any further, George, can we just switch over to our observation hive viewing, give you a little bit more time to look at, get
Sure,
ready?
absolutely. I'm just messing now, so.
Yeah. All right, Chris, if you want to roll
Wanna
that
lift
tape
that and
for
tell
us,
me what you
guys,
think?
we're just going to
I'm
show you
Jack
an
Michael.
observation.
This is Tim Ferris
Within a
from
local
Tuscany
school.
Beekeepers.
Something that
Thank you
the
for
club put together.
working with us
The
and
school was able to get it on
Getting
a
the grant to
grant.
have an observation hive
it's something
installed
pretty
in your
cool
school.
to
I
look
think
at.
it'll be a great learning
And then we'll come back to the hive.
Just to let you know what we're going to do today. There are bees in this top box, and it contains 5 of these wooden frames. This is what beekeepers put in their hive. Some of the frames are plastic, some are wooden, and then this sheet in the middle is called foundation. That's either plastic, like this one, that is wax coated to help the bees get started, or sometimes it's wax foundation. The frames, when they're in the hive, will rest right up against each other, and that allows the bees whose wax glands have been activated will start building the wax out on either side of that foundation, just to the width of the frames, so that when the frames are side by side like that in the hive, which they will be, they leave just enough space for bees to go through their single file, what we call bee space, which is about 3/8 of an inch. So the frames in those boxes already have the wax drawn out. Some of them on both sides completely. There's at least one frame in there that the wax is partially drawn out on. So you will get to see, once the hive is installed, the bees building the wax out, as well as you'll see the adult worker bees and drones, brood, which consists of eggs, larvae, and then once the larvae is fully developed and sourced to pupate, there'll be a tapping across the top of those cells so that the pupa can spin a cocoon, pupate, and then emerge as an adult bee later. There'll also be some cells that are filled with pollen and honey, which is what they make from the nectar. That's their sole source of food. The nectar from the flowers is their source of carbohydrates. The pollen is their source of protein. Other than nectar and pollen, water is their only other food.
Great. Hey guys, welcome back to Live Feed. We just zoomed in. We've actually got an infrared camera going. So I use infrared for hive cutouts out of buildings to try and find the colonies. If you look in closely, you can see the extra heat of yellow of the bees. So if you're inside a house, you'll actually get that same yellow color coming through. So in Celsius, it's reading 32 to 33 degrees,
at the bottom of these cells,
which is basically body temperature of 36 degrees Celsius is around 98 Fahrenheit. So as you can see with the split back with the two hives, you can see that heat coming up, and you can see that heat at the entrance. So going back to that washboarding that we were talking about earlier, because the brood chambers are staggered, there's more heat going directly up, so we had more ventilation, more washboarding going on in that space. So the bees can actually change their body position and start fanning, and that will create a draft going up through the hive for ventilation. Okay guys, going back to the hive, you're looking through the deeps at the moment, through the brood chamber. This hive had swarmed, so ideally we're looking for brood to make sure we got a queen. Either eggs or larvae is a good sign. And then we're also discussing how much honey is further down the hive. So what do you see, guys?
Well, we see a lot of honey in this hive. Now that's not really unexpected because the hive swarmed and there was no larvae to take care of, or no brood to take care of. So basically everything they were foraging went into honey for a couple weeks. On the frame that Elise is holding, I think I see some eggs. Singular.
You know.
Well, I'm pretty sure. You want to take a look, Tim? You know, the question is are they eggs from a queen, or are they eggs from a laying worker? Okay. You know, and I don't know early on how to tell the difference. You know, they're not really that
So
My concern is that they're not really that, well, I'll let you say
So
what,
when George is saying that, you're looking for a pattern. So if we look at the frame, the eggs are quite staggered, which a new laying queen can do because she'll walk a lot more than a more seasoned queen. But the eggs are in the center of the cells, and there's only one per cell, which is a good indicator that it's not a laying worker. A laying worker's abdomen isn't as long, so usually she will put eggs on the cell walls rather than right at the bottom of the cell. A newly mated queen can lay multiple eggs too, so I usually try and, in a situation like this, is actually go through and find the queen, or I'll come back in 3 or 4 days time and see if that pattern improves.
yeah, the only thing I don't like about what's on that frame is the really spottiness of the pattern, you know, and you know, I'm not 100% confident that the hive is effectively requeened itself at this point, because I've seen laying workers start kind of like with that ish pattern.
Yeah, they can start that way. So ideally finding the queen. I also, if I've got a bad pattern from the original queen, I usually not to try and let that hive requeen itself. I'll actually requeen it with different stock. Only from the perspective that you've got that same trait, same genetic line going through.
Yeah, so maybe what we're seeing is what the mother was doing, right?
Yeah, it could be a flow-on effect because it's usually a trait that follows the female line.
But these bees continue to be very nice, though.
They're very gentle. I'm not wearing any gear. If these were my hives that are more commercially, not aggressive, but more commercially forage orientated, like averaging 80 pounds a hive rather than 40, they would be buzzing everywhere and trying to lick the moisture off my eyeballs right about now. But very average pattern. The other thing to do is watch it hatch into larvae, and that will tell you if you've got any brood disease. So with that, you can see them start doing hygienic behavior, and that's when your pattern can also change. So eggs is one thing from a laying pattern from what the queen will do, and the other aspect is the larvae pattern and how much hygienic behavior the bees are doing, and how many bad larvae that they're pulling out, basically, whether it's got disease or whether they're just not happy with
That
it.
one's all honey. Yeah.
Okay, so that's all part of hygienic behavior. You can go to the other extreme where you can have extremely
it's wet
hygienic
cap,
stock,
so that's
and
what
they'll
we're
actually
talking about,
remove
like wet cap versus
a
dry
lot
cap.
of the brood out of the hive, and it will actually collapse itself.
So Alicia was asking about the darker color of the cappings, and that's what we were talking about
Yeah,
earlier.
so earlier we're talking about how that's wet honey. So if you scrape it, see how it's right on the surface? You can see now, but just by pressing it, you can actually see the honey is now touching the wax. So that's what's called wet honey compared to dry honey. So most of that is pretty wet.
Would you leave that in there longer to dry, or?
No, it's not moisture content, right? So it's a bad terminology, okay, the name of the phase. So all it is basically whether the honey is drawn all the way out to where they've capped the wax or not.
So
there's no real difference in the grade of honey. They haven't worked out whether it will keep longer or anything like that, as far as I'm aware.
So this is a hive that definitely warrants another look at in a couple days, you know, because if we can't find the queen, or if the laying pattern doesn't get better, we surely would like to try to solve this situation before it gets much worse if it is a laying worker developing.
Chris, we've got time for Q&A as we're approaching later into the time period. One thing to look at, guys, before Q&A is the honey super on the ground. If you zoom in for us, Donna, you notice it's not directly on the ground, right?
Your bees aren't that
what
nice.
you can do is put your outer cover down flat,
Now
if you're
they're
on
starting
flat
to get a little,
surface, and
you know,
stack your gear that way.
When I push that frame
if you're
down,
transporting your honey supers
got
back
a
to your
little-
kitchen or wherever you're going, you
they
want
got
to
a
cover
little,
it once the bees are out. So there are a couple of methods of getting the bees out. One, you can use an escape board, which I'll go and get to show you, and the other is you can actually blow them out with a leaf blower.
these bees are starting to hum a little bit, Tim. So I'm just gonna
You good?
put them back together.
Can you pick up that hum on the mic?
Can you hear it? You can hear they starting to increase their hum a little bit. So you hear it now? I know you can hear it. Yeah, when you start to hear that sound, it's time to say, okay, I'm done.
My hive does that
all
Almost
the time.
all the time.
No, we've already established that these bees are really, you know, these are nice bees for the backyard beekeeper because they're generally gentle.
Just before you put the lid on, George.
Sure.
Guys, this is a Liga escape board panel. I actually got these ones in from China and made them direct, so I have a few hundred of them. How you do it is you actually put that on top of your brood chamber, you put your honey super on top, you leave it on for 2 to 3 days. The bees can smell the other bees below them, and then they walk out these exit points. The way it's designed is like a funnel system, so they come through. It takes them about 4 or 5 days to learn how to go back the other way. So that will depopulate your honey supers. Then you can lift them up on the edge and then blow out the remainder of bees. When I say remainder of bees, you may have 10 to 20 bees in that box when it's done properly. It's a lot gentler on your hives. Your hives will stay nice and calm, and when you're doing it, you can also under super. So you could put your next box on, next honey super on, and then put this on top, and then put your one that you're going to extract on top of that. That'll force the bees down, and they'll start working on that next box below. So a nice, very cheap piece of tool. You only use it for a few days of the year, but it's a really nice way to keep your hives nice and balanced. Okay, mate, close up.
Hey, looks good. 9 minutes. We could wrap up early today if there's no questions too. Go get our lunch.
Okay.
We're gonna eat honey.
For lunch. Yeah, that's a good one. Did you bring a spoon? You were talking about bringing spoons.
I forgot that, you know. But so what are we gonna?
We're talking about food then. So why don't we roll the clip from Juniper Tree, and they can show you an idea for lunch.
All right.
Yeah. So guys, Juniper Tree, they're up in Eagle. They make smoothies. They make acai bowls. It's a nice little cafe type system. One of the many throughout Chester County that's buying local honey and using it through their menu range.
Hello, Amanda Wilkes here at Juniper Tree Juice and Coffee Bar in the Village of Eagle in Chester Springs. We use local honey from Extract in Box for a lot of our menu items. We sweeten our smoothies, smoothie bowls, energy bites, and even our lattes. Come inside and see. All right, we're going to put together a nice acai bowl. Acai is a Brazilian berry from Brazil and full of antioxidants. But we use acai and frozen banana to make the base. A little bit of granola on the bottom. And then I think we may just even share this, you know? Yeah. Good of you there.
Awesome. Well, that's great seeing people use our local honey. You know, it's definitely a commodity that we all should value, and like I said, it's really not that hard to enjoy and extract your own honey. So we really hope that you learned something today. Next, in 2 weeks we'll be back, and I think 2 weeks we're going to start our Varroa discussion. You know, sort of about what is Varroa, why do beekeepers care about Varroa, what are we doing about Varroa, what are the options to do about Varroa. So it's really an important thing to understand whether or not you're a beekeeper or not beekeeper of what beekeepers are trying to manage to keep our hives healthy. So, and then we're also, go ahead, Tim.
What do you use, George?
I use Formic Mite Away Quick Strips, and I try to get them in late July or early August to start, is my usual first treatment.
Okay, so I'm actually using Formic Pro. I find the mortality rate is a little bit less with them. The reason why I do that is currently queens are about $27 each. Like, I know you're breeding your own, I breed mine as well, but when you need to replace 50 or 60 in one day, it's a bit more of a drama. The efficacy rate is a little bit less with Formic Pro, but it also lasts 2 years. So if anyone's interested in Formic Pro, they can reach out to me with the club. I'm doing a big bulk buy at the moment and splitting packs down, which probably saves you about 50% on Formic Pro in bulk. So if anyone's got any questions on that, they can shoot me an email at tim@extractinbox.com, and I'll take care of you while we're at it.
And what are you doing this year, Alicia, for Varroa?
I have no idea.
She'll learn in 2 weeks' time, I guess.
Right answer, right?
Good answer. Yeah, so we can talk about different treatment options next week. What you do with smaller nucleus colonies as well, compared to using acid. There's different strip options. And then we've got a hive cutout that we're going to show that we did earlier in the year. And we also have, what was the last thing, George?
Artificial insemination.
Artificial insemination. So I was lucky enough to spend time with Daryl Barkhouse, who's got a PhD. He also runs a local lab as a director of a lab. We had him at our facility on this past Saturday, doing artificial insemination with queens, which is a new avenue the club started last year, and we're trying to perfect it this year. So we got some video footage on that will be edited by then, and we'll be good to go.
How do you feel about harvesting honey now?
Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better than when you started today?
Yeah, better than when I started. I had no idea how to do that at all whatsoever. So I learned something today.
Cool.
So the other option is say, hey Tim, can you extract my honey for
Yeah.
you? And I'll be like, sure. How many frames or how many boxes do you have? You're like, 2. I'm like, sure, that's no problem at all. And I can put that through my honey processing plant. It will only take a couple of minutes and save your arm muscles.
Absolutely.
And time, so you can carry on painting and
that's
and
the
working.
benefit to joining your local Beekeepers Association.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. This has been Alive at the Hive. We're here every second and fourth Monday of the month. Look forward to seeing you guys again. And goodbye.